Questions about any of the types of general reference tools? So when it comes to, you get ready to start a paper and you say, okay, I think I'll take a look at an encyclopedia or a dictionary or something like that to get me started, right? So I can figure out what I'm talking about and help me find some additional sources. What are the kind of things that I should be looking for in a general reference work? Well, first of all, one thing to really pay attention to is accuracy. Right? Is this work known for its accuracy? And certainly one of the things to do sometimes is look at multiple reference tools about a specific subject. Right? And so if you're, again, archaeology, don't just look at one specific Bible dictionary on archaeology or one specific encyclopedia on archaeology, but look at several. Now what would be the purpose of that? Well, there are a couple things that would be useful for doing that. First is the bibliographic information might be different in each of those encyclopedias you refer to. Right? So it could provide you with more resources than just looking at one by itself. But then also you can kind of compare and contrast. I mean, if you're looking at an older encyclopedia, there might be some things in that are out of date, that newer encyclopedias might provide you more information or suggest, well, we used to think this, and that there were no Hittites, but archaeology has discovered that there are Hittites. Right? So if you look at a book from the 1800s, for example, you might not see anything about the Hittites. And so you go, okay, there's nothing archaeologically about the Hittites. Well, a lot of things have been discovered about the Hittites since then. And so that's just one example of how multiple resources can help you. And it has nothing to do with sometimes whether one is completely wrong. It could be, well, at the time, they didn't know this, but this other work was found. And so accuracy is important. Authority is also an important aspect. Who are the people writing this encyclopedia? Who are the people that contributed to this dictionary? Because, if you're looking at a very specialized type of reference work that you believe is really going to help you, then the people that are involved in that should be authorities on this subject. And so if you're looking at an encyclopedia on biblical archaeology and there's no contributors list of who helped, what they were from, is there a PhD after their name, right? You maybe should be a little skeptical about that unless you compare it with other sources. Right? Now that doesn't mean that just because you have a PhD in archaeological methods that means this person's going to be right. But if the people contributing to your encyclopedia have business degrees, then maybe I'd be a little bit more suspicious of that than an encyclopedia on biblical archaeology that has archaeologists that have contributed to these discussions. Right? And so, thinking about who's the authority behind this. Right? Because a general reference tool like an Encyclopedia Britannica or a World Book Encyclopedia or something like that, they're not going for the specialists. Right? The contributors to that are just people that have looked up other things online, not online, but maybe online, or read other books or other things like that, and just compiled knowledge. And they might not have a degree or they might not have experience in that particular field. Doesn't mean it couldn't be accurate, but it does mean we should be very careful and cautious of this information. If I replicate this, right, and just write it in a paper but appropriately cite it, and it just so happens that my professor did archaeology as his PhD, which I didn't, but let's say you're in another class. Right? And he looks at this and he says, that's not right. So I want to make sure that the information I'm providing in a paper, to somebody in a church, right, that information is accurate. And so thinking about who are the people, there's some authority here. What's the scope of this information, or this particular tool? What's it focused on? Because when you look at a general biblical encyclopedia, it's going to cover a lot of things related to biblical studies. And it can be a good start in a wide variety of topics. But it might be more helpful to look at an encyclopedia that is more specialized in the sense of, this is a biblical archaeological encyclopedia versus a general biblical encyclopedia. Right? Both will give you information about archaeology, but if it's more focused on archaeology, that would be more helpful. Now, the same way with the flip side as well. There might be something in a biblical archaeological encyclopedia about New Testament texts, but that might not be as helpful as a dictionary on New Testament theology, right? And so thinking about what's the scope, what is this book, what does this series of books cover? Is this the best place for me to go to get the overview I'm looking for? Another thing, it has to do with the currency of the information. Some information doesn't have to be current, because it's true and it's always going to be true and people have known it for centuries. Other things, however, you want to think about, right? When was this encyclopedia brought together? Does this relate to new and recent discoveries in particular fields? Is it going to provide me the most up-to-date information possible? Right? Now, nothing is going to be absolutely like today current. Even with something like Wikipedia, and we'll talk about Wikipedia here in a little bit, there's some editorial controls in there to make sure that things don't, inappropriately get posted and stay there. Right? And so if there's a new theory about what happened to Jericho, right, it might pop up on Wikipedia, but the editors and other contributors are going to pull it, right, revert the edits until it's been accepted by scholars in general. Right? And so even something like Wikipedia, which could be like spur of the moment or current, even that, there's some other things that may not, right? So your currency is not always going to be most up to date. It might be, well, this was published in 2014 versus this other one was published in 1895. Right? Again, depending on what you're looking at, the 1895 one might just be as good as the 2014 one. There's nothing different. Right? Nothing new has been discovered about this book. But in most cases, you're going to want the most current information about something related to biblical studies. Also helpful is the arrangement. Again, most dictionaries and encyclopedias do things in alphabetical order, and so in most cases arrangement is just alphabetical order, but you have to think about, is this one going to help me find the information I want quickly and rapidly? Right? How general is it? How specific is it? And so thinking about how the things are arranged, and of course a handbook is going to be arranged by a different approach. Most handbooks aren't going to be necessarily in alphabetical order. The editors would probably group things together that seem to make the most sense. And so part one is method, and part two is theories, right? And so they're going to kind of use that. And so there's an important thing to think about when it comes to arrangement. How am I going to find the information that I want to find? Right? Is there an index? Or if I can't find it, I'm going to be able to look it up in an index. Right? Because even dictionaries and encyclopedias aren't going to cover every possible thing you can think of, as far as like I can just turn to the beads and find what I'm looking for. But if it has an index, you can find, okay, it references these words in other articles. Also helpful in some cases would be special features, and thinking about photos, timelines, other things. Which one should I start with? Well, this one has a timeline. I'm really interested, or I really need to focus on something related to chronology. So this is going to help me out. And so thinking about which of these are the best. Which leads us, as we already kind of talked about, to Wikipedia. What to do about Wikipedia? Essentially, you're going to find a wide variety of opinions on Wikipedia from an academic standpoint, right? And so, if you're thinking about you're doing research, can I use Wikipedia? Can I use Wikipedia in my paper? So Wikipedia, in a sense, we have to kind of see what Wikipedia is before we can then think about it in the context of using it in research. So anything we've thought about related to encyclopedias kind of transfers over to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is an online encyclopedia, right? And so that means it can have the benefits of an encyclopedia, but it can also have the cons or the detriments of an encyclopedia. Right? Encyclopedias, in general, aren't going to provide you everything you could possibly want to know about a topic. Same thing with Wikipedia. Some entries are going to be better than others. Some are going to be more extensive than others, just like a regular encyclopedia would be. Now, of course, one of the differences between a general encyclopedia or even specialized encyclopedia and Wikipedia is the collaboration. Right? In most cases, a regular encyclopedia is going to have multiple authors, but you're not going to get more than maybe 2 authors on any one specific entry. Usually it's just one author on an entry, where with Wikipedia you could have a variety of people that are working together on an entry, right? Either intentionally or not, right? And so as you come across something, edit it that way. Of course, Wikipedia, one of the things that's quite different than a general encyclopedia or a print encyclopedia is the possibility of it being much more current. And so if you have an encyclopedia that comes out in, let's say, 2016, right, hot off the presses, that encyclopedia has probably been in the works for 2 years, right, because the collaborators had to be identified, they had to write their articles, the articles had to be edited. They had to then all be put together. An introductory essay had to be written. It had to be a proof had to be developed. That proof had to be edited. The proofs would then be turned back to the authors. Right? An index would have to be compiled. And so it might have been 2 or 3 years that this thing has been in press before it comes out in 2016. Right, so the likelihood of your currency of your information is probably 3 or 4 years old. Whereas with Wikipedia, again, it can be updated, edited on the fly, so to speak. And of course, related to that issue of authority, anyone, of course, can edit Wikipedia or most entries. There are some entries that are locked because they are related to specific controversial subjects or some other things like that, where people will sometimes go in and, because of their distinct viewpoint on something, edit it either glowingly or condemnatory. Over the years since Wikipedia has been out there, there have been a couple of things that people, academics especially, have pointed to in an attempt to try and discredit Wikipedia in a sense, or at least try to discourage its use. And one of the things that has been pointed to is the fact that anybody can edit in most cases. So there isn't necessarily that idea of authority like you would find in other types of encyclopedias. Again, more like a general encyclopedia where the collaborators might be people that are just able to pull together a specific article rather than having academic specialty or scholarly specialty. Additionally, one of the problems with Wikipedia as far as using it for research is that it might not always be adequately sourced. There are some articles where you go down to the sources and it's just, 115 different sources and footnotes, right? And so some of them have really, people have spent a lot of time coming up with footnotes and resources for that. And then others you go through, and of course there are those little markers that say, you know, this needs citation needed, right? And so, you know, it's kind of hit or miss depending on the specific topic you're using. There, of course, are those issues of reliability, with people being able to edit, and so there have been a variety of people who have been declared dead on Wikipedia who are very much still alive, and so it took a while before those things were changed, right? So, you know, that's something simple, but, you know, that is something that might be a concern, so thinking about that. And then, of course, you know, we're essentially talking about authority, accuracy, and bias. Those are kind of the three issues that cause a lot of academics' concern in how Wikipedia is used. So, in thinking about, all right, so are you saying not to use it? Well, some of you professors, either in Bible or in other classes, are going to tell you not to use it. I'm not going to tell you not to use it, but I do want to kind of lay some things out that you know, I think you should keep in mind.